Alright, you guys, so thank you for taking the time out tonight to go over the information in the study guide. I want to make sure that we have what we need in order for you to be successful on the test tomorrow. What I need you to do is, if you do not have your study guide and a separate sheet of paper, please stop the video now so you can grab those items, because I am requiring you to copy down what I write, okay? Whatever I am writing on the video, you must copy it down, okay? Now, you have a choice. If you do not want to watch the video, I suggest you fast forward, copy down the information. But if you want to learn and review the information, I'm sorry.
To the front for dismissal, please. Deja's scrunching to the front for dismissal.
We might have a lot of interruptions because we are after school. However, we're going to keep the party going, all right? So again, if you do not want to watch the video because I'm not sure how long it's going to take, I'm going to go as fast as I possibly can. You can just fast forward to each question, pause, and write down that information. Or if you want to really review, make sure you take the time to write and listen to what I'm saying, all right? So let's get started with number one. Number one says, find the unit rate for the...
Miss Robinson, if you're still in the building, please call extension 237. Miss Robinson, if you're still in the building, please call extension 237. Thank you.
Alright, number one says, find the unit rate for number of parts manufactured per hour if 1,630 parts are made in 6 hours. Round to the nearest integer. Alright, the first thing we're going to do, you guys, is identify our units. We're talking about parts and we're talking about hours. Alright, so now that we're talking about parts and hours, we need to make sure that we know how to compare them. So we're looking for the unit rate. So we know that with unit rate, something has to have a denominator of 1. So we need to ask ourselves, what are we looking for 1 of? Well, we're looking to see how much it is in 1 hour. So we're going to compare parts to hours. Alright, so we're going to just fill in the information that we know. We know there are 1,630 parts as well as 6 hours. So we're going to write it down as 1,630 over 6. And we need a proportion, so we're going to write x over 1 because our denominator should reflect 1 hour. So therefore we put 1 in our denominator in our second ratio. So now we're just going to cross multiply. We get 6x when we multiply 6 times x. And 1,630 times 1 is 1,630. This is now a simple one-step equation. So we're going to divide both sides by 6. And x should be 271.6. And because it said round to the nearest integer, we're going to round it to 272. Alright, 272 is our answer. Question number 2. Number 2 says, a 16-ounce bottle of water costs $1.44. What is the cost per ounce? Again, the first thing we're going to do is identify what we're going to compare. And this statement tells us we're going to do cost per ounce. So we're going to write it as money over ounces. And then we're going to fill in the information with what we know. We know that it costs $1.44. And that we're looking for 16 ounces. We're looking for the unit rate. Our next ratio should be x over 1. So now we need to cross multiply. 16 times x is 16x. And then 1 times 1.44 equals $1.44. Dividing both sides by 16. X should be 0.09, which leaves us with 0.09 or 9 cents per ounce. Number 3. Number 3 says chairs are being arranged in rows for an assembly in the school cafeteria. The same number of chairs is in each row. If there are 304 chairs in 8 rows, write an equation that could be used to determine y, the total number of chairs in x rows. Alright, so we're going to keep it with the same process that we've been using. We're going to compare chairs to rows because we're looking for 1 row. So So we're going to put row in the denominator. So if I were to fill in the information, I know that there are 304 chairs and 8 rows. So I'm going to put up my second ratio, x over 1. And if I were to cross multiply, 8 times x is 8x. And then 1 times 304 is 304. So when you look at your answer choices, 8 times x, the closest thing we have to that is y equals 8x. So your answer needs to follow along in this pattern. Remember, we talked about earlier in the year that when we are looking for the total, sometimes we can call the total y. And 304 talks about the total number of chairs. So therefore, we can replace 304 with y. So this makes perfect sense. The answer should be y equals 8x. Our next question. It says the ratio of boys to girls at a school dance is 3 to 4. If 252 students attended the dance, how many of them are boys? So what we're going to do first is we're going to talk about what we are comparing. So we're comparing the totals to boys. All right, well, how many total are we talking about? We're talking about 7 total because this is 3 to 4. And how many boys are there? Well, we have 3 out of 3 to 4. And we're going to set this equal to the ratio that we do know. To the total that we do know. We know that there are 252 total, but we're trying to figure out x. So now, again, we can cross multiply. 7 times x is 7x. And then 3 times 252 is 756. We can divide both sides by 7. X should be 108. So there are 108 boys. Number 5. Number 5 says your body burns 0.25 calories every 30 minutes that you are asleep for each pound that you weigh. How many calories would 165-pound boy burn if he slept for 7.5 hours? So, this problem is kind of complex, but we're going to work through it. So what we do know for a fact is this, that the first ratio we have is 0.25 calories over 30 minutes. But in the end, we're looking for hours, so we need to convert this to hours. We're going to convert it to hours. So what we're going to do is set up another ratio. Since minutes are on the bottom and we want to eliminate it, we're going to put minutes on the top and we're trying to end with hours. What's the relationship between minutes and hours? Where there are 60 minutes and 1 hour. So now we can, this is supposed to be multiplication. So now we can multiply across, so that gives us 0.25 times 60 cal over minutes divided by 30 minutes an hour. Well, because we have minutes in the numerator and the denominator, what we can do is we can cancel those out. So now, after we multiply that out, this equals 15 over 30. And this is calories over hours. So now, we know that we have 15 calories an hour. So what we're going to do is divide this and it goes to 0.5 calories over hours once we simplify it. So now we go back to his weight. We have 165 times 0.5. And our answer should be 618.75 calories. Again, this is complex and I don't expect you all to get this totally right or understand it because we didn't spend that much time on it. However, I wanted to show you how to complete it. Number 6. Number 6 says solve the proportion. And this is fairly simple. We've been solving proportion all video. So we have 2 over 10 equals 11 over x. We're going to do cross products. 2 times x gives us 2x. And then 10 times 11 equals 110. We divide both sides by 2. X should equal 55. Number 7. Number 7 says write as a unit rate. We've been doing this again all video, so we're going to compare miles to hours, and that's going to be 594 over 9, and that should equal the ratio of x over 1. So we cross multiply. 9 times x is 9x, and that should equal 594 because 594 times 1 is 594. We divide both sides by 9. Our answer should be 66 miles over hours. Very, very simple. Let's look at number 8. Number 8 says to write this as a unit rate. We're comparing cents to marbles. So that's going to be 6 over 3. Our next ratio will be x over 1 because we're looking for unit rate. We're going to cross multiply. 3 times x is 3x. And then 6 times 1 is 6. Divide both sides by 3. X should equal 2. So that's 2 cents. So it is the equivalent to 0.02, which is what's on your test. All right? Let's look at number 9. Number 9 says write as a unit rate. We are comparing what was money to weeks. So we have 1770 over 3, and we're going to compare that to x over 1 because we're looking for the unit rate. 3 times x is 3x. 1770 times 1 is 1770. Divide both sides by 3. X should equal 590. So that's $590 a week. Number 10. Number 10 says to write as a unit rate. We're comparing feet to minutes. So we have 1,320 feet over 1 minute. But if you noticed here, we're trying to convert this to seconds. So since we want to get rid of minutes, we're going to put minutes in the numerator and seconds in the denominator because that's what we want to keep. Now, what do we know about the relationship between minutes and seconds? Well, for every 1 minute, there are 60 seconds. So what we're going to do now is we're going to, this is multiplication. We're going to multiply that out. So we have 1,320 feet times minutes over 60 minutes per second. And since minutes are in the numerator and denominator, we can cancel them out. So 1,320 divided by 60 gives us 22. And we're left with feet over seconds. So the answer is 22 feet over second. Number 11. Number 11 says Alondra can paint 119 doors in 8 hours, while Camille can paint 54 doors in 4 hours. Who paints the most doors or who paints the fastest? I wasn't great in that second part of it. So what we're going to do is compare the doors to the hour for both. So we have 119 doors for 8 hours. That gives us 14.875 hours, or 14.875. And then we have 54 over 4. And that gives us 13.5 doors an hour. So who does the fastest, or who does the most doors? Then that has to go to Camille. Camille wins this competition. Number 12. Number 12 says, find which is the better buy. Which one will give you the most popcorn, or which one can you buy more of based off of the price? So here we're comparing dollars to ounces. So for the first one, that gives us $1.04 over 28 ounces. That reduces down to, or the unit rate for that would be 0.04. And then for the second one, we have 2.04 over 15. And then that reduces to 0.13 ounces per second. Or this is 4 cents per ounces. And this is 13 cents per ounce. So the better buy is the first choice. Number 13. Number 13 says, find which is a better buy. And I just totally messed that one up. So let me just find it and fill in the information that's missing. So we have $1.05 per 6 ounces, and then $2.10 per 12 ounces. So to go with the first one, what we're going to do, we're going to compare, again, dollars and ounces. So we have $1.05 divided by 6. And that gives us 18 cents per ounces once we do what we've done the entire video. And then for number 2, we're going to compare 210 over 12, and once we find the ratio, we end up with 18 cents per ounce, which means that they are the same. So you will go right if you choose either one. Number 14. Number 14 says to simplify, and again, this is complex fractions. With complex fractions, you just have to rewrite them. So that's 5 over 11. We're going to keep the numerator, change division to multiplication, and take the reciprocal of our denominator. So that's going to become 5 over 2. And then we multiply across, and we get 25 over 22. So the answer is 25 over 22. We're going to do the same process for number 15. We're going to, again, keep the numerator, which is 2/5. We're going to change the division to multiplication, and we're going to flip or take the reciprocal of our denominator. So that becomes 1 over 9. We're going to multiply straight across, and we get 2 over 45 as our final answer. Number 16. Number 16 wanted to know if this chart displays a proportional relationship. And we reviewed this. We know that in order for it to be proportional, it has to have the same constant that creates the relationship between our x and our y values. So basically, what do I do to x in order to get to y? And if it's the same number for each column or row, we know that it is proportional. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to divide our y by our x, and when we do so, for the first one you get 3.5 here, you get 3.5 here, you get 3.5 here, and you get 3.5 here. So this means that yes, it is a proportion. Alright? Our next one is the same matter. We're going to figure out if it's proportional or not. I'm sorry, let's go back. And yeah, so let's go back, and here it says to determine the constant of proportionality. The same way that we did the problem before, we identified the constant of proportionality because it's the number that, again, creates the relationship between our x and our y. So you're going to divide our y by our x, and you're going to get 0.8. And you're going to get 0.8 for each one. So therefore, our constant of proportionality has to be 0.8. All right, number 18. Number 18 says, explain what the ordered pairs 3/12 mean. All right, so our y-axis represents quarts, and our x-axis represents gallons. And so when you're reading, you always read the x-axis first, and then you read the y-axis. So we look at this ordered pair represents x comma y. So therefore 3 have to represent gallons. So there are 3 gallons in, if you look here, 12 quarts. So always read our x-axis first, and then go into our y-axis. And number 19. Number 19 wants us to graph this information and then determine if it's proportional and then find the constant proportionality. So we're going to draw our chart. I think on your paper you already have one. The first thing we need to do is label our axis. So this is going to be time. And then this one is going to represent distance, our y-axis. All right. So now I can write the origin here. Then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And our y-axis, we're going to go in increments of 500. So it's going to be 500, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, 3,000. And when we graph it, 1 goes to 500, 2 goes to 1,000, 3 goes to 1,500, 4 goes to 2,000, 5 goes to 2,500, and then 6 goes to 3,000. So when we graph it, it looks as if it goes through the origin and it is linear. So if I had to answer if it's proportional, I would say yes. According to the graph, it's linear. And goes through the origin. And if I look at the table, the relationship between x and y is constant. In order to check this, we need to see what do we do to x to get y. Well, if I multiply 1 times 500, I get 500. If I multiply 2 times 500, I get 1,000, so that checks out. And if you solve all the way down, you show that that checks out as well. So therefore, that's our second reason. Every x has to be multiplied by 500 in order to get y. And then our third reason is if we were to do a proportion, let's say I do 1 over 500 equals 2 over 1,000. If I do the cross product of these two, 1 times 1,000 gives us 1,000, and 500 times 2 gives us 1,000. So therefore that checks out. It is proportionate. And our constant of proportionality, again, it comes from the relationship between x and y. We multiply it by 500, so the answer is 500. All right, guys, so that is 1 through 19. Please, by all means, copy down each answer, and I will see you tomorrow and bring it to school. All right? Talk to you tomorrow.